Hey everyone, so in this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at the newest phone by Google, the Pixel. But before we begin, let's take a moment to remember the Nexus. The Galaxy Nexus was my first Android phone, and I loved it. It opened my eyes to the Android world, and it made me appreciate the Android ecosystem. Anyways, let's now focus on the new Pixel. The Google Pixel is everything that Android was missing. Google built the mobile operating system, but they have never built a phone themselves. Sure, the Nexus was as close as they could get, but the phone was always built by someone else, and it simply carried the Nexus name, meaning that it had timely updates. But now, with the Pixel, we get a phone designed by Google to work together with their operating system. Anyways, let's begin with the review, because I have so much to say about this incredible piece of hardware. In terms of design, this phone is beautiful. Sure, the front kind of looks like an iPhone, but with a little bit of that Google flavor. And honestly, I kind of dig it. I also understand why Google decided to go for this design. They wanted to welcome iPhone users with something that feels and looks familiar. I know friends who have never tried Android and don't even know where to start, and this Pixel is exactly where they should start. Something that feels like an iPhone physically, but works completely different. Anyways, let's get back to the design. The Pixel comes in 3 colors: really blue, quite black, very silver, and they are all made of aluminum with a glass backplate that looks great. I think the device is beautiful, and personally, the bezels don't bother me that much. That is why I got the device in a white. But the black color hides them far better if that's something that bothers you. Fingerprint Scanner on the back, which is awesome. I love it. And there's no camera hub for those that don't like them. There's also a headphone jack, which is awesome. And it's also important to mention that the phone only has 1 speaker, which sounds okay. But it's too easy to cover up. I kind of wish that they would have carried over the Nexus front-facing speakers. Maybe even the Nexus 5X speakers. Even though there was only 1, it was front-facing. In terms of performance, the Pixel is extremely fast. It feels incredibly fluid and smooth, but that's to be expected from a high-end Android device. The specs are a Snapdragon 821 with a clock speed of 2.5 GHz and a 1.6 GHz quad-core 64-bit processor and a healthy 4 GB of RAM. The Pixel will be able to handle virtually anything you throw at it, and it can do some high-end mobile gaming no problem. Overall performance is very high-end, and it feels very speedy. But more importantly, the device feels very polished. The best reason to get a Nexus, a Pixel smartphone, is for the timely updates. And in this particular case, exclusive updates. The launcher can only be acquired officially via this phone only, which is a shame because prior to this, all Nexus devices were promised updates. And sure, they will continue to get them, but they will not have access to the Pixel launcher. This is how I view Android devices. I see them in 2 bubbles: the Pixel bubble and the non-Pixel bubble. The ones that get updates and the ones that don't. And I've always picked the update bubble, and I virtually don't pay attention to the other Android devices. But that's only because I care about having the latest updates and always having the best security updates and features. As I stated at the beginning of the video, the Galaxy Nexus was my first Android phone, and I loved it. It had horrific battery life, and I was in love with the display, and the form factor at the time was awesome. But my favorite Nexus device was the Nexus 4. It was the first high-end Android device that was priced aggressively, and it had everything we could expect from a high-end device. And now, we say goodbye to the Nexus era, and we begin a new era, a new polished high-end era, the displays. Let's talk about those displays. These freaking displays are marvelous. They're absolutely incredible. Why can't all displays on smartphones be like this? Let's talk about the smaller Pixel first. The display is an AMOLED, and that means we get some inky blacks, which makes everything look fantastic. The regular Pixel has a full 1080p display, and it looks fantastic. Those viewing angles are just killer. As we all know, AMOLED is known for oversaturated colors, but personally, I like to tune them down, and that's exactly what I did in the settings, so colors are not too saturated, but again, that's personal preference. The larger Pixel has a 1440p display with the same AMOLED screen, so it's just as epic, but even sharper. One thing I noticed from both is that they're fairly bright for an AMOLED screen, which typically tends to be on the low side, but these are more than bright enough. Overall, I have nothing but great things to say about these displays. They are pure freaking win. The larger XL is virtually the same phone as the regular Pixel, and that's a good thing. Before this, the Nexus 5X and the 6P were vastly different, and that was a bad thing, because if you wanted a different size, you had to compromise somewhere. But that's no longer the case. Regardless of the size, you get the same phone on all fronts, and that's great for those that don't want a large phone. In terms of battery life, both Pixels are excellent. They have exceeded my expectations. As we all know, phones have been competing in the thinness department, but not Google. This phone isn't the thinnest, and that's a good thing, because at the end of the day, we want battery endurance. In terms of battery size, the regular Pixel has a 2770 mAh, and the XL has a 3450 mAh, and both are fairly large for today's standards. The Pixel got me around 6 hours of screen on time on a light day, and 5 hours of screen on time on a heavy day. And the XL was able to last around 7 hours of screen on time. And those are some fantastic numbers for both phones. Again, endurance will vary, but those are some fantastic numbers, and I'm very pleased. Let's discuss the camera on this phone. Before this phone was released to the public, it was being hyped as the best camera on a smartphone ever. It was rated at 89 by DxMark Mobile, and to be honest, I had never heard of this benchmark before. I just wanted to test the phone and see it for myself. And I gotta say, this phone shoots some incredibly sharp photos, like some of the best I've ever seen out of a smartphone. The specs are as follows. It has a 12.3 megapixel camera with a large 1.55 microns and a 2.0 aperture. Unfortunately, it does not include optical image stabilization. Pictures look fantastic. Colors are very close to real life and not overly saturated. The Pixel produces some of the best looking pictures on any smartphone. And even in low light situations, it performs very well. I don't have the iPhone 7 to make a direct comparison, but from what I've seen, the Google Pixel has one of the best smartphone cameras that you can buy today. In terms of video, things look just as great if you can control the exposure. And if you can produce some fine looking footage. Even the image stabilization helps out a ton, making the image look really smooth. Still, I would have loved to have optical image stabilization, but maybe next year. Looking at the entire package as a whole, is this device worth the price? Personally, I think so, but I do understand why some people might not think it is. Before this device, even the Nexus 6P was cheaper at around $150 less, and prior to that, Nexus devices were usually far less than the competition. For those that aren't sure about the price, know that you are getting a solid phone that feels very high-end. It doesn't feel cheap at all. Nothing feels or looks cheap. This is truly an excellent device for those that want a high-end Android device with virtually no cutbacks anywhere. To conclude, this here is the Android King, the Android staple, the device that will represent all Android devices moving forward. It brings along one of the best cameras on any smartphone. It also brings the most polished Android experience you can get today. Android is quickly becoming one of the most polished mobile operating systems. And with constant updates, it also means it will become one of the most secure. Android has produced a high-end device for those that are willing to pay the premium. Even though we say goodbye to the Nexus, we welcome a great new Android device. A device that I absolutely love, and I'm truly excited for what the second generation might bring to the table. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. And before I go, I just want to say, I don't want to be first with content. I also don't want to race to upload either. I want to make videos that I would want to watch, because at the end of the day, it's more important to have quality over quantity. So smash that like button, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.